podcast you're about to listen to is from a book series on post-qualitative, new materialist, and critical post-humanist research. I'm Karen Murris and chief editor of this new Routledge series. You can find it on the following website, www.postqualitativeresearch.com.
I would love to read the title of a chapter. I'm so glad we're getting to read each other's chapters and do this podcast together.
I know, it's amazing.
Relational bodies of memory, time, and place. Hauntings in salty waters. By Joanne.
I actually, for me, in thinking about doing a podcast or even being in dialogue about the chapter, it's very specific for me that the emphasis needs to be placed on what has been written in the chapter, because it's an unfamiliar thing for me and my ancestors and my family, where publications are something that are a way of recording our stories or in a form of writing. And I think to honor that, that's why I'm wanting our time to be about reading some of the work from the chapter, in order to make it accessible, the chapter itself accessible to those who can't buy books or won't have access to be able to read this, because many of the members of our community are represented in this chapter anyway. So maybe I can just start by reading a section about my relationship with salty water, which is on page 5 of the chapter.
Starting with my journey with water.
My journey in water is wild with fear and misunderstanding, and yet I keep finding myself in the ocean. As I struggle to trust the backwash pulling me into the expanse of the ocean, my spiritual sensibilities are awakened. As I notice the skins and wetsuits that speak about my difference, exclusions, and access, makes my palms sweaty. I'm unclear about what to do with my fears, and equally feel like the salty water welcomes my embodied complexity and questions. Do the wetsuits hold the memory of access to salty water for the bodies that have been separated from the sea? I find it hard to breathe. I search for a place where the noise softens and reveals a map for calmer waters. I turn towards my research, hoping I would find a language for the complex stories of bodies, land, and water. I read and listen to different concepts and don't find a cognitive grasp or language to write or express my voice or thoughts.
Sure. I'm just thinking about this wetsuit. You presented an early version of this chapter at our university with our master's students, and my partner Cleo was there, and he's also a brown person who's rediscovering, through you and Anya and some of the other authors in the book, rediscovering the ocean. And you taught us about how what is known as Windmill Beach is actually called Irene Beach by brown communities. It was previously a black only beach, but during apartheid, where the beaches were separated according to race. And then you taught us about how that place was also a concentration camp for prisoners during the Boer War. And they used to wash and bathe there. And so it was through you that I learned about Derrida's hauntings and hauntology, and how places and our own ontologies can be haunted with the memories and the activities of the past. And Cleo, after watching you presented, you said, I swim because I'm scared. I swim because it's cold. You said, I refuse to put on a wetsuit, to put on a second skin, which you'd kind of describe in this first part.
Yeah.
And he said he used that mantra as a way to actually overcome his fear and get into the water without a wetsuit. And what you opened up now is saying how accessible would this book be to your community? I think is a very important question around how our hydrofeminist research enters and accesses the community. But I saw how even in making this chapter, you created kind of a mantra that could actually be useful for a young brown queer person to access and remember his relationship to the sea.
And the performance of writing in a way that is relatable and pays attention to the world of academia, but also how that is not separate from the everyday life of who we are as researchers. And you spoke about hauntology now in Derrida, so maybe I'm just going to read this little section from page 10, and then maybe we can go back to that the whole concept of bodies and zipped up, because I'll say a bit more then. So on page 10. Page 10 of my chapter, which I don't think is page 10 in the book, but anyway, it's Camisa reminds me that these ghosts are not only human bodies but include tidal pools, houses, rubble, signposts, sandy beaches, railway lines, and societies. That's drawing on the work of Zimbala, Spozolak, Matala, Judge, Tuck, and Ree. Ghosts carry the memory of loss and erasure to haunt the world in its materiality. Ghosts are breathing and swirling in the world. So like you said, Dylan, Jacques Derrida suggests hauntology as a spectral domain where life and death are originally entangled. What vibrates is what might yet have been, imagining possibilities of living and dying otherwise. Hauntology for Derrida is an ongoing conversation with ghosts of the past. The aim of the conversation is to invent a different future rather than fixing the past. And I'm grateful for the work of Viv and Sadiq and Michelinos, who have also helped me with thinking about this concept. The gesture of hauntological thinking offers a thickness to the meshwork of entangled lines and invites us to consider new imaginaries of past, present, and future. So I'm thinking about how you were speaking about it in your podcast as well, about the Group Areas Act and laws and how much of that is still alive, even though these signs have been removed from beaches, So the relentless remembering and reminding that will not appease the settlers' society's assurances of innocence and reconciliation. I feel like haunting is both acute and general. Individuals are haunted, but so are societies.
Yeah. And we can see, in my work in the One Ocean Hub and the Coastal Justice Network around trying to change policy and law, you can see how the policies are haunted. They still carry these kind of memories of these classist, racist ideas around access, and they do it not intentionally, but it's because of the blindness that the system's forced in. So for example, fishers, are not included in so many of the decisions that are made, especially the indigenous, small-scale, mostly black and brown fishers. Are kind of an afterthought in most of the ocean decision making, and that's a kind of haunting that's still in the system.
It looks like we're nearly out of time, but I think the important place that I don't want to squeeze in at the end is
2 minutes, I think.
Yeah, but I just wanted to, before we run out of time, I wanted to say that it's really important that I pay tribute to and honor the different participants in this work. Specifically, I'm grateful for the Camisa Museum, a site of archiving stories of this place of sweet waters for all. And
which
really
is what Camisa means, right?
Say again?
Is what Camisa means. Sweet waters for all,
And just the way in which the acknowledgement is given to bodies who are no longer with us, as well as the bodies of water and the richness of these relationships between human and nature, and then also just to say that through my research, it's been very obvious to me that the doings of relationships with yourself and Anya and others, and also with Cleo, has given me the opportunity to really write with a confidence and authenticity, because those stories count and they influence. So yeah, that's why I really do want to dedicate this this podcast to Cleo specifically, for being able to keep, like, echo what's been written in this chapter, what I've presented before, and just take it beyond my words and beyond my meaning of it. So I read this as an ending to Cleo. My choice not to wear a wetsuit cannot be reduced to a tactile defense. The zipping up of the thick rubbery skin is a closure and a form of containment. A tight, black, costly second skin pulling over, rolling on my skin, tightening limbs, pressing organs while eyes look towards the water. The wetsuit suffocates my skin and restrictively makes me sweat. I'm reminded of Sara Ahmed's sweaty concept, which she explains as one that comes out of a description of a body that is not at home in the world. With Ahmed, my difficult bodily experiences are a part of the effort and labor that drenches my writing process, especially when tidying up texts and using text to write bodily stories. My palms are sweaty as I type, even now as I speak, Dylan. My body responds to the wetsuit by resisting its grip and releasing the anticipation of sweatiness, because there are too many other sweaty encounters for my brown skin to live through. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend, and thank you for all of this. You give us access in ways that you often don't realize. And to the sea, to ourselves, to our memory, to our history, to be better placed in the world. I'm so grateful for your work.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you would like to know more about this chapter, please visit the website www.postqualitativeresearch.com. And please stay tuned for future podcasts.